Hello and welcome back to another video. So a few days ago I uploaded a video where I looked at a potential scenario in 2028 where JD Vance could win the presidency in a landslide, and today I want to take this in the opposite direction. So we're going to be looking at a potential scenario where the Democrats could win the presidency in 2028 in a landslide. And to build up some context for this scenario, we're going to assume that the economy is in a recession. Voters are very unhappy with Donald Trump. Inflation is high. The tariffs have been very inflationary. Unemployment is high. The stock market is not doing well. Overall, economic sentiment is not well whatsoever. And we're going to assume that Trump's approval rating is a net negative of probably 15 or 20 points, and JD Vance is not all that popular either, and we will assume that JD Vance is the Republican nominee, and he's going to be pretty closely tied with the Trump administration. And on the Democratic side, we're just going to assume it's a generic Democrat, no Democrat in particular. And for this scenario, not only will we have the Democrats do better than Kamala Harris did in 2024, we're going to have them do better than Joe Biden did in 2020. And if you'll remember, back in 2020, Joe Biden won the popular vote by 4.5 points, and he won 306 electoral votes. So in this scenario, we're going to assume the Democrats win the popular vote by around 5, maybe 6 percentage points. So let's get started. So we're going to start out by filling out the safe blue states. I think the West Coast, obviously, and then you've got Colorado, New Mexico, Illinois, a lot of these states here in the Northeast. Now, New Jersey did vote for voted for Harris by only 6 points, but in this scenario, it would be a safe state. And to explain more about what I mean by safe, likely, lean, and tilt states. Safe states, they would be won by over 10 points. Likely states, 5 to 10 points. Lean states would be 1 to 5 points, and tilt states would be less than 1 point. Now, Virginia, same story as New Jersey. Harris won it by 6. In this scenario, it would be a safe state. Biden did win Virginia by 10. Now, also Maine's 1st congressional district and Maine at large. Now, going on over to the Republican side, you've got a lot of these states here in the Great Plains region and Nebraska as well, but not Nebraska's 2nd congressional district. We'll get back to that. And Nebraska's 1st congressional district, I think, will actually be likely Republican, because this is a district that Trump won by 11 points in 2024. It could definitely narrow up. And then Kansas, this is a state that Trump beat Harrison by 16 points in 2024. And relative to the national popular vote, Kansas has actually been consistently trending to the left the last few election cycles. And in a Democratic landslide year, it's possible that the Republicans only win Kansas by high single digits, maybe around 9 percentage points, which is why I'm actually going to make Kansas likely Republican in this scenario. And then obviously a lot of these southern states here, they're going to be safe for the GOP. Now, South Carolina, this is a state that Biden lost by 11. I think it could slightly narrow up and be a 9-point win for the Republicans. Now, Florida, it is a safe state now. It's a state that's rapidly been trending towards the Republicans. Trump won by 13 here. I think the Democrats could narrow it up in a landslide scenario enough to where we can rate it as a likely state. Iowa, 13 points for Trump in 2024. I think this, in a good year for the Democrats, they could lose it by 7 or 8 points. Ohio, in a landslide year, I think the Republicans probably win Ohio by 5 points. I could see an argument where maybe it's 4 points. That would take a big swing, but for now I'll say 5 points. And then in the state of Alaska, Trump won by 13 points. Biden lost it by 10 points back in 2020. In this scenario, the Republicans would probably win it by 8 points or so. And then New Hampshire, Harris won by 3, Biden won by 7. I think the Democrats would win by 8 or 9 points in this scenario. Now, Maine's 2nd congressional district, Trump won here by 9 points back in 2024. I think this narrows up to about a 5 or 6 point victory for J.D. Vance. And then Minnesota, the last time it voted for a Republican for president was back in 1972. In Ronald Reagan's 1984 landslide, Minnesota was the only state he didn't win. And I think that blue streak would certainly continue here. I think Democrats would win here by 8 or 9 points in this hypothetical scenario. And then in Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, Biden won here by 6 points. Harris, she won here by, I believe, 3 or 4 points. The Democrats would win here by around 8 points in this scenario. Now, going on over to the state of Texas, this is a state where in 2016, Trump beat Hillary Clinton by 9 points, and then in 2020, he beat Joe Biden by 5.5 points. Democrats were pretty excited. They thought, Texas could get even closer, but then in 2024, Trump won here by 14 points. I think in a really good year for the Democrats, they could narrow this down on the presidential level by 6 or 7 points, but that's if they are winning nationwide in a landslide. And that would still keep Texas in a likely R rating. It wouldn't be quite enough to be lean Republican. Now we have the 7 core swing states left. Now, in the state of Georgia, this is a state that Trump won by 2.2% in 2024. Biden won by 0.25 percentage point. Now, although Georgia did swing towards the Republicans from 2020 to 2024, relative to the national popular vote, it actually trended towards the Democrats, and it's been doing so for several presidential election cycles in a row now. I think that trend continues. I think the Democrats, at least in a landslide year in 2028, they would at least win by probably 4 points. I could see them winning by 5 or 6 points, and simply due to the huge trends towards the Democrats in Georgia relative to the nation. But for now, I'll put it as lean Democrat. Now, North Carolina, this is a state that Trump won by 3.2 points. If the Democrats win the national popular vote by 6 points, that's a 7.5 point swing from 2024 to 2028. Which would mean that the Democrats would win North Carolina by 3 or 4 points. Now, realistically, I don't see that happening, but I could see them squeaking out a win here in North Carolina by less than a percentage point, maybe 2 points, but we'll give it to them by less than 1 point, which would make it a tilt Democratic state. And keep in mind, North Carolina, the last time they voted for a Democrat for president was Barack Obama when he very narrowly carried North Carolina back in 2008. So that leaves us with 258 electoral votes for the Democrats, 219 for the Republicans. Now going on over to the state of Nevada, Trump flipped it for the first time since George W. Bush won it for the Republicans in 2004. Trump lost it in 2016 and 2020. He finally won it in 2024. Relative to the nation, Nevada has been trending to the right for several election cycles now, but I think in a blue wave year, the Democrats narrowly take back the state by maybe 2 or 3 points. Arizona, this is a state that Joe Biden carried by 0.25 percentage point back in 2020. They've elected a Democratic governor, 2 Democratic senators, but in 2024, there was a huge swing to the right. Trump won by 5.5 points. That was nearly a 6-point swing towards the Republicans, but on the same ballot, they elected a Democratic Senator, Ruben Gallego, by several points. So Democrats can still win here, but it's not going to be easy. But in a landslide year, they certainly should win the state of Arizona, perhaps by a tilt margin. But it won't be an easy thing to do, considering the state's significant shift to the right. But Trump's numbers have been getting worse on the immigration issue, and if that continues to get worse, I mean, Arizona is a state where the immigration issue is very significant, and that could turn away Latino voters who swung towards Trump in 2024. Now, that does put the Democrats over 270 electoral votes, which is what you would need to win the presidency. Currently, they're sitting at 275, but we still have 3 states left. Now, going on over to the state of Wisconsin, Trump won here by less than 1 percentage point in 2024. Out of the 7 core swing states, this was the closest. And this is a state that's been decided by less than 1 percentage point for 3 straight elections now. And relative to the nation, it did trend to the left in 2024, even though it swung towards Republicans. And on the same ballot that it voted for Trump, it did re-elect their Democratic Senator, Tammy Baldwin. I think in this scenario, the Democrats could win Wisconsin by maybe 3 or 4 points, making it a lean Democratic state in this landslide scenario. Now, going on over to Michigan, state that Trump flipped. He won it in 2016. Biden won it 2020. Trump wins it again in 2024 by 1.5 percentage points. But a large part of the reason why Trump won Michigan was due to the war in Gaza, which turned a lot of Muslim American voters away from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. But those same voters have soured on Trump, as he has sided with Israel on many issues. And I think those voters could, at least some of them, revert back towards the Democratic Party, which would help them get over the top in Michigan. They could win by 2 or 3 points in this scenario, maybe even 4 or 5 if they beat out Joe Biden's 2.7-point margin back in 2020. Now, Pennsylvania, similar story as Wisconsin and Michigan, voted for Trump in 2016 and 2024, but Biden carried it in 2020 by 1.2%. In this scenario, I do think the Democrats retake Pennsylvania, and that would put them at 319 electoral votes, which is Joe Biden won in 2020 with 306, so that's an improvement of 13 electoral votes, and Kamala Harris got 226, so that's an improvement over Harris by 93 electoral votes. So thank you all for watching. If you did enjoy, please be sure to drop a like, subscribe, turn on post notifications so you don't miss a future upload. Please feel free to comment video suggestions in the comments section, and I will see you all in the next video.